And now hello to Dorothy and to Marlon and Esther and Linda and to Gabi. Nice to see you. And I see we have somebody else coming in right here. Okay, we'll start with our blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. We are almost there. The holiday of Shavuot will begin, God willing, tomorrow night after counting. I have to say, my husband Steve has been amazing reminding us to count. We have on several nights been already in bed, and it's like, oh, count the Homer, get up, get out of bed and count. But we managed to do it all the various places we've been to not lose track. So at least there's been one thing that we could count on that was going to happen, and that was the consistent counting of Sfirat HaOmer. So here we are through, 7 different locations that we've been in since we started counting, and here we are. So God willing, we're looking forward to it being here, and thankfully we have invitations for some of the meals, and we're actually having a guest for Shabbos lunch, a woman who I met. So we're looking forward to doing that. So the holiday is going to start, and what I wanted to share today is from so interesting, so fascinating. It is a class that was from Rabbi Eliyahu Maksumov. And I'd never heard anything from him before. I found him on Torah Anytime. And the theme for this is, as you saw from my email to you, is that preparing for Shavuot, the answer is in the stars. So what we're going to talk about is the zodiac for the month of Sivan. The month of Sivan, which is the month, of course, when Shavuot is and where Shavuot falls. And we're going to talk about what that means and why. So interestingly, just to have a sense of the progression of the zodiac, the month of Sivan is the last of what are called the spring months for the Jewish calendar. And it started with Pesach, April, and that month, the month of Nisan, the zodiac was of the sheep, of Aries. And that is obviously connected to Pesach and the Korban Pesach, the Passover sacrifice. So all the zodiacs are of Jewish origin. So that's why if you notice they go according to the moon, according to the lunar calendar. The next one is the month of Iyar, and that is the ox. And the ox is the animal is the worker, and that symbolizes the work that is done during the Sfirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer, as we go from being a passive sheep to an active ox. Nobody ever yokes together sheep and has them do anything. They're just they're the ones who are led. The ox is the king of the domestic animals. And then when we get to the month of Sivan, we get to Gemini, we get to the twins which are obviously people. 2 people, twins. Now I have a special affinity for this as a Gemini myself. And so I especially resonate with this for the month. But the question is, why is the month of Sivan Gemini? Why is the month of Sivan twins? So we're going to take a look at a few different answers that are given and then delve into one that I had never heard before and where we're going to focus our attention. So twins by definition are 2. So some say the reason that the zodiac for the month of Sivan is twins, is 2, is because very obviously Moshe came down from Mount Sinai with 2 tablets. And we have the tablets, we have the mitzvot that are between man and God, and between man and man, person and person. So we have 2 tablets, we have 2 categories of mitzvot. Some say also it's because the Torah is really in 2 forms. We have the written Torah, and then we have what was given at the same time, which is the oral Torah. Also good. There's also, we are told that we are supposed to learn Torah day and night. And so it represents 2 times for sure during the day. During the 24 hours that we're supposed to learn Torah day and night. There's another one that takes it at a next higher level, which says that the month of Sivan is twinned with the month of Nisan, because Nisan represents the exodus from Egypt and our physical freedom taken out of Egypt. But the whole thing was only for the purpose of its twin, which is the month of Sivan, where we receive the Torah and really then receive spiritual freedom. Even though many people don't necessarily feel that, they feel like the Torah is restriction. The truth is that the word to engrave something, which is like the 10 Commandments were engraved, is also related to the idea of being free. So it's like that is a Zman Cherutenu, that is the season of our freedom, that true freedom is to be liberated, to be your best self. And that's what we always think. People say, what kind of a life do you want to be? I want to be free to be my best self, which doesn't mean uncontrolled, do whatever I want. It means to be channeled and focused in a way that really can bring my best self forward. And what is that? That's the full potential of my neshama. So that represents the twin month that goes along together with the month of Nisan, and the month of Sivan brings us together, our physical freedom with our spiritual freedom. All of those are great answers, and you could offer any one of them at your Yontif meal about Shavuot. But we're going to take it a little bit deeper, which is when we stood at Mount Sinai during this month of Sivan, what was happening? The whole month is about our being able to receive the Torah and to be able not to just receive it, but also to observe it. We know that there are 613 mitzvot, 613 commandments. So the question is, can anybody, when you say, I'm going to receive the Torah and I'm going to do it, because what did the Jewish people say at Mount Sinai? They said, Na'aseh v'nishma. We're going to do it and we're going to listen. Okay, so let's say you even were completely motivated to do every single mitzvah. The question is, could you? Could you even do every single mitzvah? Even in a lifetime? How could you do that? So there's 613 mitzvot. Some of them pertain only to women. Some pertain only to men. Some pertain to you if you're the king. Some pertain to you if you're a Kohen or a Levi or a farmer, or you went out to battle, or you just got married, or you're putting up a mezuzah, or you're doing any number of things. So even if a person wanted to, they're not going to be able to even do all 613 commandments. So how do they say, Na'aseh v'nishma, we're going to do it? So we want to explore what this means. So is there a way, and this is what we're going to answer, so it's the rhetorical question, is there a way to really do all of the commandments, to have access to them, and to have ownership of all 613 mitzvot? So to answer that question, we're going to step back and explore a story that you probably are very familiar with, which is in the Gemara. You know the story, I've heard, you can just put your hand up if you have heard the story, that there was a person who wanted to convert, and he went to Shammai, who was one of the great leaders of the Jewish people. He went to Shammai and he said to Shammai, teach me the entire Torah al regel achat, on one leg. And Shammai is like, chutzpah, what are you thinking? I've been studying the Torah like my entire life. It is beyond comprehension. You'd be lucky to get it in your whatever if you devoted all the rest of your remaining years. And how dare you say, teach me the entire Torah on one leg? And he kicks them out of the yeshiva, and the guy goes off. And where does he go? He goes to Beit Hillel. He goes to Hillel's yeshiva. And he goes to Hillel himself, not even like his shamus. He goes not even to the assistant director. He goes to Hillel and he says to Hillel, I want to convert, teach me Torah on one leg. And Hillel's like, okay. So now we have to ask a question. Hillel was also the great sage of the time. What kind of conversion would that be? What does that even mean? He said, and how do we know what he answered? It's also recorded. What he answered is he said to the person, don't do to others what you do not want done to you, or the kind of the inverse, reverse, or twin really, v'ahavta lirecha kamocha. Love other people as yourself. And the rest is commentary, go and learn. And with that, he converts him. So Shammai would be like, what are you talking about? What kind of a conversion is that? I know there are a lot of liberal versions about what a conversion is, but I've never heard anybody say that that was a conversion. What does that mean? So that we have to understand, what was this person really asking? says Hillel understood what he was asking. What he was asking when he said al regel achat, on one leg, says think of a leg not on your leg, standing on one leg, but how another way we use the term regel, of something of a leg. It says when you go on a trip and you are flying into different cities, you say a leg of your trip, right? So like when we fly, we leave Florida, we're going from Miami, and our first leg is to JFK. And then the second leg is going to be from JFK to Israel, God willing. So what's a leg? What was he asking? What he was saying is, I want to convert to Judaism. I want to take on all 613 mitzvot, and I want to do them. But I don't want to have to come back and be reincarnated. Because since there's no way that I could possibly get all the commandments because they don't apply to me, I would have to keep coming back. So in this lifetime, I was a woman, so I'll have to come back. Next time, I'll be a man, and then I'll get the men's mitzvahs. Then I'll come back again, and I'll be a Kohen, I'll get that. Then I'll come back as a farmer, and then I can live in Israel and do Shemitah. And I can come back again as like, I don't want to do that. I want to do al regel achat. I want to do on one leg of the journey. Is there a way that this wasn't chutzpah? Is there a way to have access to all the mitzvot where I can really take on all of them in a way and have access even to the ones that don't pertain to me? Why is it so important? You'd think like, if they don't pertain to you, so they don't pertain to you. So we have to understand how the neshama works, how we think it works. It says the neshama is considered to be made up of 613 parts, and we're going to call those 613 lights. When we do a mitzvah, the light that corresponds to that mitzvah lights up. If you do it once, maybe it lights up like 10 watts. If you do it many times, you get to 100 watts, 150 watts. So there's the quantity of the 613 lights, and then there's the quality of how bright the lights are. Says what this man was saying is he doesn't want to come to Shemayim after 120 years and be kind of like a partially lit up board. Like, I want all the lights to be lit up. I want to have the full package. How can I do that? It seems like it's so overwhelming. And Hillel answers him with the key. And the key is not just for somebody who's looking to convert, it's the key for us as well. How do we have access to doing all of the mitzvot? It says that we get it from what Hillel said to him. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Now, does this mean that makes you into a completely observant Jew? What about Shabbos? What about kashrut? What about tzedakah? What about lighting candles? What about any number of things? That's not it. How can you do that? How can you even say that? He said, well, there is a spiritual equation, a spiritual dynamic that happens, which is that when we love another person, we become partners with them. We become attached to them. We become their twin. When I become your twin, I share what you have, just like in the womb. Whatever you get, I get. We're both getting the same thing. So when I attach myself to another person through loving them, I then have access to their mitzvot. So how do I get the mitzvah of being a Kohen? By loving Kohanim. How do I get the mitzvah of being a man? By loving the man in my life I'm supposed to live, who I love. So it's interesting. I remember Ita Liban telling me that somebody had her issues about women's issues and said to her, kind of like in a snarky voice, "Where are your tefillin?" And she said, "They're on my husband's head." It's like, I'm connected to him and he's wearing the tefillin and those are my tefillin. And they could have asked Rabbi Liban, "And where are your Shabbos candles?" He's like, "My wife lit them." We share. We have a joint account. When we have a joint account with all Jewish people, we actually are considered to then have their mitzvot. Now, unfortunately, it also works the opposite, which is that when we are mean to other people and have sinat chinam and speak lashon hara against them, we get their averas, we get their sins, and we'll share that. It's like, oh, you're bringing up the negative things. You attached yourself to their negativity. You now have their negativity. So it's not a one-way street. It goes both ways. So if we want the mitzvahs, it comes through loving. If we want their averas, it goes through the lashon hara and the disconnect that we have. We're not going to talk about the Israeli situation, but everyone knows, I think, that there's the discord between the different segments of the Jewish world, that if everyone would realize that the soldiers need the yeshiva people, and the yeshiva people need the soldiers, and everyone needs the people who are in business, and everyone needs the people, that we all need each other, and not just like, oh, the society will work better, but for the Jewish people, it only works that way, and we will only have the merit. It doesn't matter how much merit you put on your scale. There's no way one person or one group can have all the merit. It doesn't work that way. It works through na'aseh v'nishma. We are going to do it together. Everyone should have said, they didn't have a vote beforehand. When they stood in Mount Sinai, they didn't have like, okay, everyone vote. Do you accept the Torah or not? Everyone answered with the only plausible answer, which is na'aseh v'nishma. We will do it and we will listen. Nobody said e'aseh v'eshma. I will do it and I will answer. And I will listen, because it's not possible. The only answer is the collective answer. And it comes through my attaching myself to the other person. So how does this exactly work? So it's like, so how do we love other people in that way? So we have been spending, so those who were involved in Sfirat HaOmer, the counting the Omer, and going through the Sfirot, and we're going through each of the qualities and our character development. It's like, why were we doing that? It's like, we were doing that so that we can do this better, so that we can say na'aseh, so that we can say this together better. And I can see myself as a twin. Not just, it's even more than just brothers and sisters. People, they do studies about, sometimes you'll see it on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, you'll see, they'll do like little videos of twins, babies, like talking to each other. They even almost have like their own language. They're a mirror image of each other. When I look at my twin, and I don't mean a fraternal twin, if I look at my identical twin and I see me, I don't even see like, okay, it's a them and I'm not so sure. It's like, no, I see me. That's my twin. That's my twin. I will have an automatically different response to that person because it's me. That's starting to sound much more like v'ahavta l're'echa kamocha. Not just you shall love your neighbor as yourself. You shall love your neighbor. Why? Kamocha, because he is like you. He is you. It's the same person. And there used to, did any of you remember, it was a really cool thing. It was too crazy for me, but in the shopping center on Monaco, this was years ago, like when our kids, it was called Big Fun. Our kids would go there, like they had different games and things like that. But one of the things they had was a mirror. When you sat down on two different sides, two different people sat down, and it was a mirror that was a combination of reflecting and also see-through. And so what you saw was a combination of your face and the other face of the person who was on the other side of the mirror. It's very cool. It's a little weird. You see yourself like, oh, I thought I looked totally different than this person. But then you see yourselves combined, and you see you and you see them, but you see the two of you combined. Sometimes you see this in your children or grandchildren, as each side of the family says, no, they look exactly like our side. It's like, no, they look exactly like our side. It's like, they actually look like both. So when there is this kamocha, kamocha, this person is like you, is you. It's your twin. And in that way, we are able to approach and something even remotely resembling receiving the Torah and having credit for the for all of the mitzvot. So there's a very there's a funny kind of a funny story. It says about a rabbi who every parsha he would somehow connect to V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. You shall love your neighbor as yourself, including it says that parsha Balak, which is about the king Balak who hired Bilam to curse the Jewish people. And it says, like, what does that have to do? He was like our arch enemy. How is Balak a symbol of V'ahavta l'recha kamocha? And so the rabbi says, the word Balak, it's an acronym for V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. It's like, what are you talking about? V'ahavta starts with a vav. Balak starts with a bet or a vet. You can say it either way. There is a lamed in there, that's true. And kamocha starts with a kaf and Balak ends with a kuf. It's like, that's different letters. It says, okay, bet vet, lamed okay, kuf kaf. If you really want to have shalom with people, you don't have to be such a perfectionist. You don't have to look so carefully. It's a bet, it's a vet. No, it's no. Okay, it's a lamed, I'll give you that, but it's a kuf, it's not a kaf. It's like Balak is a symbol of V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Don't look so closely. I've shared this on other occasions, but it always strikes me, especially when I go to weddings, that Rabbi Kellerman said at the bedekin at the wedding where they put the groom puts the veil over the bride's face, and he said at our friend's child's wedding, said, this veil should be symbolic of your relationship. It says, so often in a relationship, people put the veil on while they're dating and blind themselves to the other person, what's really going on with them. And then after they're married, the veil comes up and they're looking at the other person like with strobe lights, and they're like an operating room and they're seeing every single flaw. It says it should be reversed. When you're dating, be very careful and look at who you really are with. After you're married, we're not saying to be blind, but you don't have to look so closely. Even in a Sefer Torah, which is essential that all the letters be the same, not the same, every letter be accurately made and legible, you're only allowed to look so close. You cannot get a magnifying glass and stick your face right up on top of the parchment. It has to be what a normal person would see from a normal distance of reading. And if it passes that, it passes. So there was a situation where somebody was complaining to a rabbi, this Torah is puzzle, meaning it's, invalid, you can't read it. The rabbi looked at it and goes, it looks fine to me. He goes, no, don't you see? And he's like, sticks the rabbi's face like right on, on the scroll. And I was like, that's not how you look at it. You look at a Torah scroll from a normal distance in regular light without a magnifying glass. It's like, you don't look for these to criticize people just because you happen to be very analytical and able to see everybody's problem. Unless somebody has paid you as a therapist or as an investigator, it's not our job. Our job is shalom. Our job is peace. Our job is peace. So let's go back to the story with Shammai. Whatever happens with him. So there's actually a follow-up to that story in the Gemara, that Shammai meets this person a year later after the conversion, sees a fully religious person, didn't totally recognize him, but thought he looked familiar. It was like, don't I know you from somewhere? He's like, yeah, I'm the one you threw out because you wouldn't convert me. He goes, oh yeah, I remember you and who converted you? He said, Hillel. He's like, how could he do that? So the man said, you didn't understand what I was asking you. I was asking you, how can I have access to all the mitzvot of the Torah? And one go around through this lifetime, truthfully, not just even in a lifetime, at any moment, as soon as we open ourselves up to the twin concept and see other people as our twins, we acquire the Torah at that moment. So Shammai's like, I didn't understand you. That's true, I didn't understand you. How do we know that Shammai got this? It's actually recorded in Pirkei Avot. It's recorded in Ethics of the Fathers. And if you look, you can look at some other point you can find in any Ethics of the Fathers. If you look in chapter 1, Mishnah 15. Now, Pirkei Avot, for those of you who have looked at that, has many, many, many quotes from many, many rabbis. Some we've heard of, some we haven't. A lot of them are the ones that we know from the Seder, from the Haggadah. Shammai was one of the greatest rabbis of his times. He was the greatest. Guess what? He only has one quote in the entire Pirkei Avot. He has this one quote. And his one quote says, this again is chapter 1, number 15. Shammai says, make your Torah study a fixed practice, say little and do much, and receive everyone with a cheerful face. It says, now, if he was given one slot in all of Pirkei Avot, and he's, not just like man on the street. So Shammai, how would you put into, what do you want recorded for all of posterity for the thing you think is the most important? And he comes up with what makes sense. Make your Torah study a fixed practice. But the word fixed there, if you look at it in the Hebrew, is that it says the word keva. Keva, kavua, means to be established. It should be something like concrete and there. To say little and to do much, and to say little. Was Shammai somebody who said little when this man approached him? He says, no, he goes off into a whole rant against him when this person came to him. And he says, and greet everyone with a cheerful countenance. He says, where did he learn this from? He said, he learned it from the person who converted. When he saw how he had totally misunderstood what he wanted when he came and asked and sent him off to Hillel. And those are Shammai's. And says that, so Shammai himself learns the lesson of Hillel's approach, and he learns it from the very person who he had not treated that way. Says, you want to know the best lessons? And maybe some of us, this is the same thing. The best lessons of like what we really have to say, you can really only say what you know for yourself to be true. This wasn't like, oh, I picked up a card in Hallmark. I'm going to read you, be good and do good or something, like just do it. Okay, like that's a Nike commercial. This isn't Pirkei Avot. Pirkei Avot is, what do you know deeply that you want to be recorded as your deepest advice? Greet everyone with a cheerful countenance. I did not do that. And I know it, and I know the consequences of it. And I've learned it. And so I am the one who can tell you, because nobody is better at giving advice than someone who's made the mistake and has learned from it. So Shammai, we tend to think of like Hillel's the nice guy and Shammai's the mean guy. First of all, it's not true. But second of all, Shammai and Hillel were friends. They were very close, and he takes the lesson and he learns it and he puts it in there for forever to be told. Now, one of the challenges in loving people is that people can be really super annoying. And it's like, okay, it's easy to love the people abstractly. I love humanity. I love whatever. And I remember when we were working a long time ago with Russian immigrants, and we were helping to settle families. And these people who were involved were people who had given a lot of time and money and energy for the Soviet Jewry cause. And then when actual Soviet Jews came and their families needed help, well, not everybody's easy or pleasant to deal with, whether they were Fuznik or not. It's like, I'm sorry you were in the gulag, but you're really super annoying. So it's easy to love people in the abstract. It's much harder to do it when they're in the flesh in our lives. So the question is like, so what are we supposed to do? Like, okay, I'm going to look at them. They're like my twin. Okay, I can work on that. But how does that actually work? So there is a great example of this also in Pirkei Avot. And this is in chapter 1 as well. It's Mishnah number 6. And this comes from Yehoshua ben Parachia and Nitai of Arbel. Receive the tradition from them. Yehoshua ben Parachia says, and these are the 3 things: accept a teacher upon yourself acquire a friend for yourself, and judge everyone favorably. So mostly people focus on judge everyone favorably, right? That's kind of the thing that people focus on. And it says, "V'hevei dan et kol ha'adam l'chaf zechut." So you should judge the whole person. So that's true. And it doesn't say et kol adam, like all people. It says et kol ha'adam. Judge the entire person favorably, because what happens is when we are upset and annoyed with somebody or we see their flaws, it's because we have isolated that aspect of them and we are failing to see them as an entire person. So we don't like how they voted. We don't like their mask policy. We don't like how they stand on vaccines. We don't like whatever. It's like, and all these people have other aspects to themselves. They're good parents. They're good friends. They're good neighbors. They're good workers. They're community minded. They're whatever it might be. So when it says to judge them favorably, it means in order to have shalom, in order to have peace, it means it's in entirety. When we get into what's called a machloket, which is arguments, it comes from having a chelek, seeing only a piece of the person, only a part of their reality. And the problem is when something is bothering us, the piece of their reality looms large. I'm walking to shul and I have a little tiny pebble in my shoe. I can't even walk. Okay, so it's not exactly my entire body, but it becomes incapacitating. So if somebody's piece of their chelek is bothering us, our first challenge is to zoom out into the shalom and to force ourselves to identify and articulate, and even if we're not sure, to speculate what things they do well that we can appreciate about them. Now, obviously, we're not talking about people who are a danger to us, abusers or things like that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about just the people in our midst. And until we can do that, there will always be things that bother us about other people. There are things about me that bother me about me. So why wouldn't there be things that bother me about other people? So to be able to have this shalom approach, this is what's necessary to not have a machloket. And this comes from judging the whole person. Now, in judging the whole person says also judging the situation. So the rabbi shared two stories. I'm going to tell you both of them. One of them was a story about a wedding. This is a true story. At a wedding, religious wedding, the whole thing. And the family, of course, had arranged for a photographer. Photographer's not there. Photographers doesn't come. There's the shmorg at the beginning, no photographer. There's the bedekin, no photographer. Where's the photographer? I don't know if this is in the days before phones and sending texts and like, where's the photographer? Where's the photographer? Chuppah, no photographer. Can you imagine? Now, just as an aside, we had a Shabbos lunch with a lovely man in the neighborhood, and one of the guests was a photographer who does weddings. Do you know how many people never pick up their pictures, never pick up their proofs or get things printed, or like 5 years and like the photographer is stuck with them, and like what this does to their model? They have to do things differently because people, it's so important, but then, they're moving, they're getting settled, we'll look at it, there's so many thousands of pictures, I can't even decide, and whatever. So just as an aside, but most people want to have photographs of these moments. So it gets to the dancing, and the dancing is starting, and the photographer is still not there. All of a sudden, this man runs into the hall, sets up his photography equipment, and starts taking pictures. And everyone's looking at him like, what's this guy's problem? I can't believe it. He let everybody down, and this whole thing, he's not there, and the people are going to have pictures, and like, what kind of, he's never going to work again. And so after the wedding, everyone's about him, like, this guy is terrible. I've never hired him. I can't, so irresponsible, ruined the simcha, the whole thing. So this man doesn't have any work for several months. A couple months later, his own cousin is making a wedding. He calls his cousin and he says, I'm so happy for you. I'm your cousin. I'll be happy to take the pictures. I'll give you a good price. And the guy says, I'm sorry, but, I can't depend on you. Because what are you talking about? Because, like you at that wedding, like you didn't show up until the dancing. Because, are you kidding me? He said, I saved the day. He said there was some other guy who was supposed to be the photographer who totally spaced out. I heard about it and I grabbed my things. I'm like, well, let me, at least for this poor family, capture some pictures at the wedding, at the dancing, so they'll have something. I was like the hero, not the villain. But people had so quickly drawn what was a completely reasonable conclusion, except that it was 100% wrong. So he says, Dan et kol ha'adam l'kav zechut, until you know for sure, and not just like, well, I saw with my own eyes, he didn't show up until the dancing. It's like, yes. Do you even know that that was the photographer who was hired? Do you know what happened? Do you know anything? So we tend to not investigate all of the other surrounding information and just jump to conclusions. Nobody jumps faster to conclusions than any conversation on Facebook or social media, where people know absolutely nothing and conclude absolutely everything based on their vast experience of nothing. So this is ridiculous. This can ruin people's lives. So the next time we're even thinking, wow, that seems really inappropriate, we should ask the question, I wonder what else there is to the story. I wonder what else there is to the story. And we might be surprised. We probably will be surprised. So that's the first from that saying. The second one has to do with acquiring a friend. So it specifically says here, acquire a friend. And in the Hebrew, the word is ukne lecha chaver. So the word ukne means to acquire, but liknot also means to buy. Okay, so in Israel, the shopping mall is called the kanyon, the place where you buy things, like a kinyan. It's like kanyon, liknot, where you buy things, acquire things. It says, does this mean you should buy a friend? Like that's like, we're not supposed to do that. It says, doesn't mean to buy a friend, but it may mean to pay money to help a friendship through a rough patch, or to acquire a friend when that's necessary. So the story was, again, true story. A man had a subscription to lived in an apartment building, had a subscription to the New York Times. He would go out in the morning, however, and he would see that his New York Times had clearly been opened up. Like somebody had read it and put it back. It's like, that's really weird. You know, it's kind of disheveled. It's not like nothing was missing, but it wasn't like a fresh paper. So this happens like day after day. And so he's like spying, like looking out his window, and he notices, gets up early, he notices that his neighbor next door is sitting with a cup of coffee, reading his newspaper. And he goes out to him, he's like, what are you doing? He's like, what? He says, that's my paper. He goes, so? Because like, so I'm the one who has a subscription. It's not your paper. He goes, is that your coffee? He goes, it's my coffee and your paper. He's like, what's it to you? He says, it's not like I'm doing the crossword puzzle. I didn't like fill in the Sudoku, whatever you pronounce it. I didn't mess it up. It's all there. Does it take away from your enjoyment of reading the paper if I read it too? It's like, this is crazy. I can't believe it. He goes, what's your problem? Because you're such chutzpahdik. It's my paper. So he says, we're going to the rabbi. They happen to belong to the same shul. They went to the rabbi, each side tells their story. The rabbi says, I hear you. And he says to the man who has a subscription, how much at that time is a subscription to the New York Times? He said, $150. He said, I want you to buy a subscription for your friend. It's like, what? He said, you go out to dinner, you go to a play, how much money do you spend? You really want to have machlokas with your neighbor so that every time you see him, you are like seething in anger, and that you're crossing the street because you don't want to have a conversation with him, or you're telling all your friends about this and giving yourself heartburn. $150, it'll be the best money you ever spent. Like, fine, that's the rabbi said. He buys a subscription. The paper is delivered to the friend. The friend gets up in the morning, sees the paper, and he says, he's like, oh, this is probably not for me. I'll take it back to like that guy. They meant to deliver it to him. And the guy goes, no, it's for you. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, I bought it for you. He goes, you did? Oh, he goes, now I'm so embarrassed. He goes, you're really right. I should not have taken your paper. That was so inappropriate. It's like, no, it's okay. You can have it. And then they started schmoozing, and that they became like the best of friends for the rest of their lives. It's like, that's called buying a friend. That you can be right or you can be happy. You can be like, is there a few dollars, even like $100? Some people have what they call a shalom fund. You pay money for other mitzvahs. You pay money to buy a lulav and an etrog. You pay for Jewish education. You pay for kosher meat. You pay for whatever, your Pesach extravaganza vacation. You pay a lot of money to be Jewish. It says there should be money for a shalom fund. It's like, how much would it take to buy just some peace and quiet, to buy a friend and to settle something that is so stupid, but that money can resolve? So when they say money can't buy happiness, it's not exactly true. Money well spent and well placed can buy friendship. So it says you can acquire a friend, and the acquiring the friend might take some shekels sometimes. And to do that, it says with these strategies, because it's easy to love like the people who we find lovable. That's not so hard. I already see you as my twin. I'm already good. It's those other people. And so either they're annoying us by doing something specifically to us, or just their general thing is like, I just cannot relate to them. It's like, find something to relate to and find a way to bridge the gap. And if it takes money and it takes seeing the whole person and to get out of the chelek, nitpicking way of seeing people. But nobody ever says that. Nobody ever says, I'm really nitpicky and I really identify just like all the, meaningless negative things about people. It's like, I'm not nitpicky. The thing I'm seeing is important. It's like, yes, and you're telling me there's nothing else? There's nothing else? So to be able to broaden our minds. When we says that when we look up in the sky and we see the constellation of Gemini, it's like, yes, we have 2 tablets. That's true. Yes, it is the oral law and the written law. Yes, we're supposed to study Torah day and night. And yes, it's the twin of Nisan and Sivan. But most importantly, if we really want to receive the Torah and to be able to have access to it, to be able to receive it and do it and have credit for it and to build our own neshamas and light up all of our lights. We want to come to the next world, and at 120, we want to come fully lit. Like, we want all the lights. We want our Kohen button lit up. We want our Pidyon Haben. I want my Tefillin button lit up. It's like, well, then I'm going to need to love all these people who are doing all these other things. And I don't want it just lit up at like 10 watts. I want it to be full, which means it's not like, okay, I'll just pick one Kohen and I'll like him. Like, I'll just pick one man and like him. It's like, no, everybody. They are all part of us. We have taken this on together. So when we go to the next world, our bodies, people always ask, what am I going to look like? And when people say like, we'll recognize each other, we'll see each other in the world to come. It's like, okay, so what am I going to look like? People wonder, am I going to be young? Am I going to be like on a bad hair day? It's like, how am I going to look? It says you're going to look like your neshama. It's like, what is it? Which is you. You're going to look like you, but the version of you is going to be the spiritual energy that has made you you. So for example, your eyes, a person who has an ayin tov, a good eye, so you won't be wearing glasses in the world to come. You'll have perfect vision because you used your eyes to their best. Your ears, if you listen to appropriate things and don't listen to lashon hara, and you don't listen to things that shouldn't be listening to, your ears will work and they will be youthful and young and fully functional. Your mouth, it was used to speak words of friendship, of prayer, of encouragement. You will have a beautiful smile and you will be able to speak. If you don't, you could be mute. It could be taken away. We will be a version of us that reflects what we did with our body as it represents each mitzvah. Now, someone's to say, well, how do I know which mitzvah goes with which part of my body? So this is the trick. There is a list. I saw it at one point. It's like, it was like, I don't even know where it came from. There is a list that takes each mitzvah and puts it with a part of the body. But instead of making yourself crazy over that, go the easier route. It's still a lifetime challenge, but instead of figuring out like, oh, I want my elbow to work, it's like, just v'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Take the whole package. Al regel achat. Don't say like, okay, I'll be reincarnated 4,000 times. Like, don't do that. Go for the path that is truly the best path, which is the twinned path, which takes us of like, I am going to love other people, other Jewish people, and connect myself so that I have a shared account with them. I have access. So I think I shared this story with you when it happened like 15 years ago, when Benjamin and Dahlia made Aliyah. Dahlia went to the bank to pick up their bank cards. So the bank would only give her her card and wouldn't give her Benjamin's card. And they said, well, he has to come and pick it up himself. And so, well, he can't come because he's teaching during the banking hours. Well, we can't give it to you. She's like, why not? So, well, if you had his card, you could empty the account. She said, it's a joint account. I could empty it anyway. So she said, I'm not leaving until you give me his card. So they eventually gave it to her. It was like, if you have a joint account, that means both people have access to it. And there can be a flow in and out and back and forth. It's like, we want joint accounts with other Jewish people, and we want them to be flowing in a direction that is positive and in the black for all of us. It says, v'ahavta l'recha kamocha ensures that we maintain that perspective to realize that we have a joint account and that I can have access to other people's mitzvahs, which also will inspire me to judge them favorably. Because when I come up and say, that person is worthless, doesn't deserve to live, I'm kicking him off of my whatever. When I say that, I have raised up an audit of the negative things about that person, but that means I also raised up the negative things for me too. I just took ownership of them. It's like, again, unless you're in court, you're a therapist, or you are in danger, we don't need to even go. So as I say, don't go there. We don't need to go there. Our goal is to elevate people, to find their merits, and to take a joint account and say, this person is amazing. We have friends, you all know people. I have friends, specific friends who it seems like every person they know is amazing. They always say, oh, this person, they are so special. This person, they're amazing. This person, they are just really one of a kind. We want to be those people. And can I tell you, when we see other people in that way, we will be surrounded with amazing people and realize that we are so fortunate to be in a community and in a group of amazing people who are doing mitzvahs we don't even know about. We don't know, and any mitzvahs they're not doing, we don't know why. We don't know the struggles that they've had. We don't know the challenges. We don't know where they've come from. We don't know what their issues are, what their baggage is. We don't even know if they have a migraine. We don't know anything. And all we can say is everybody's they are doing an amazing job. They are really have achieved so much. I admire them so much. Because when we can say that and see them as our twin, look to the sky and see that is why we have the twins. That's why we have the Gemini twins for the month of Sivan of receiving the Torah. It's not enough that God gives the Torah, because we say that when we make Kiddush for Shavuot, we say Zman Matan Toratenu, the time of the giving of the Torah. The giving is guaranteed. The receiving is up to us. When we twin, we will be able to receive the fullest amount possible and enjoy all of the life and the neshama life that the Torah has to give each and every one of us. So I want to wish you each a very wonderful Chag Sameach. You should enjoy. So this year, because Shavuot starts on Thursday night and it's Friday and Shabbos. So even in Israel, it's will be 2 days, not really a 2-day holiday. It'll be Shavuos and then Shabbos, but everyone will have a full 2-day experience. I hope everyone is privileged to take advantage of it. I'm sure wherever you are that there are a lot of learning opportunities and hopefully a lot of visiting opportunities and times when you'll be with other people and can put this into practice immediately. It says, in one moment, never mind just, never mind just on regel achat, I want to come through just in one lifetime, is immediately, as soon as we implement this is instantaneous access to all of the mitzvot. We will light up our neshamas. It says, when the Jewish people are meant to be a light unto the nations, this is what this means. It's like the spiritual light that we generate through what we do that we cannot do alone. That is what will illuminate the world for all of humanity. So God willing, this Sivan will be the time when we stand at Har Sinai, and just like the original Har Sinai says, where the whole world stood still for such a momentous occasion. This wasn't just for the Jewish people. This was for all of humanity. And we're not commemorating it. We are re-experiencing it. So we will stand at Sinai again on Friday morning, and God willing, we can say Na'aseh v'nishma and have a new and deeper appreciation of what that exactly means. All right, any questions? I'm happy to answer.
Before anyone leaves, can we sing happy birthday in advance for May 30th for Ellyn?
Oh, thank you.
Happy birthday to you. Can you unmute yourselves?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ellyn. Happy birthday to you and many more.
Thank you so much. And it is also Linda Leonard's birthday. We share the same birthday.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to Linda.
Thank you. So this will, God willing, be quite a nice birthday present to walk into our apartment in Israel on
right.
Yeah, I really
wonderful.
You have a small adjustment.
Hope it all works out perfectly. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
Yes. Pray for that.
Good health. Yes.
Thank you. Amen. 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 Thank you. Okay, I will be well. You and let you know. Thank you so much for joining me and have a.
Thank you, Ellyn.
It was
thank you, Ellyn.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Take good care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.